happened, Nancy?
I would like have you try to use your imagination. I would like have you try to use your imagination.
The stranger, the better. The stranger, the better. The stranger, the better. The stranger, the better. The stranger, the better.
Oh, what happened, Nancy?
I would like have you try to use your imagination. I would like have you try to use your imagination. I would like have you try to use your imagination. I would like have you try to use your imagination.
The stranger, the better. 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 The stranger, the better.
Hi, Shenzap. Hope you can hear me okay. Hi, Shenzap. Whoops, you can hear. There we go. Yeah, so today's going to be like a watercolor painting demonstration as well as sort of an open drawing workshop. So I'll show you who our model is for today. That's going to be this guy.
Hi, Jenzap. How are you doing? I hope you can bring some art supplies and just hang out and make some art. And Chris is gonna be drawing a lot, painting rather. He'll be doing some painting, and you can just hang out and draw along, or paint, listen, hang out. I'd love to see what you make. Maybe if you make a cool drawing or painting, you could email it on in to sunlandsunspace@gmail.com, sunland_sunspace.com, and then we could have a look at it together.
Yeah, so this is sort of our setup for today. I'm going to be painting here, and for a couple hours just talking about things. And if anyone has any questions or wants to interact in any way or email something in, we can take a look at it on the stream. However, really, we can do all those things. So yeah, I'm just gonna get started in just a second here. So yeah, last week, or actually it was a few weeks ago, we tried something, for the first Sunspace art session where we had a Zoom going on, a Zoom session, and the idea was people could interact in that way, but maybe we'll work back towards that in the future. It was a little bit much technology stuff, so I'm gonna just do it this way today and see how it goes. But there's a lot of other ideas and stuff in the works for this, and ways for other people to kind of interface and share whatever their artistic practices might be. So yeah, if you guys ever have any ideas of anything or want to contribute, want to send in a video of you modeling or posing in some kind of costume or character, or you have something you might like to read for us to sort of overlay in as audio in a future session, you can feel free to just reach out on Instagram or here or email and see what we can make. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna kind of talk about things. When I like to do a watercolor painting, you can see here actually, this is my kit. It's a little travel kit by a German brand called Schminke, and I got it when I was on a little art study abroad thing in Berlin. It's a really cool set. I've actually not really tried many others, but I just this is my first watercolor kit and I just fell in love with it. So it's really messy. I think part of the appeal of watercolor for me is its portability, and I feel like I like to do a lot of things. Some of them have nothing to do with painting, right? More technological computer stuff. So for me, downsizing and just keeping things as minimal and portable as possible is like helpful for me making stuff. Just in general, like if it can all fit in my backpack and not take up too much weight, those are all things that I think kind of contribute to the likelihood of me actually, being creatively productive and not being like, oh no, I don't want to, I don't have time to, clean oil paint off brushes with toxic turpentine for an hour, so that's why I like watercolors. So, anyways, what I was getting at is the palette's really messy, and oftentimes, I don't know, the way I like to paint, that's not necessarily that much of a problem. Maybe some of the colors, like I can already see on this palette, there's some leftover kind of dark red, dark blues, and some other stuff, and I think some of those tones are going to be, usable, so I can kind of work with them as strange non-refrigerated leftovers that have been
just waiting for the perfect moment to reemerge and help out in a strange, archaic process. A sort of a primordial paint smearing. Except instead of a cave wall, we're gonna be using some good old... We're gonna be using some,
Oh, well, I don't know what that was. We're gonna be using some Canson watercolor paper, just some standard old watercolor paper. Yeah, what else is there to talk about? Oh yeah, I think one little more thing about watercolor itself is, and using a dirty ass palette is, I think one of the fun things about mediums, paint mediums that are transparent, meaning, you know, like this is it's a water-based paint. It's often very airy. It's not like mixing up a thick pile of oil paint that is going to be opaque. And, you know, by transparent paint, we're going to be putting on thin layers and glazes of color, and light is actually going to pass through those layers. So there's a lot of opportunity for overlapping colors. And given this bright white, oh, lost my audio feed. Oh no. Let me check on this real quick. Yeah, sorry, Gen Z app. I can hear it on my end, so I'm not sure, but I'll try to keep an eye on it. So anyways, yeah, egg tempera paint, there's, you know, even oil paint, right, if used really thinly, can sort of be built up in this way that can utilize a bright white surface of a paper. So we're going to be stacking thin layers of paint, and light can pass through those layers and bounce back off of this white paper and have sort of a glowing effect. Now, whether or not that can be seen via Twitch TV through a camera remains to be determined, but you know, it's part of the fun consideration of making a tactile object. Okay, so enough with that. Let's mention brushes real quick. You know, I like to keep things simple, so for me, a big, a medium, let's say this one, and a small brush are what I like to stick with. So of course that's relative to based off of, you know, based around what size paper you're working with. So, but for me, you know, big, medium, small works. And then, yeah, I think let's just talk to our model real quick. Make sure that they are, make sure that they're ready to go, and then we can get painting and drawing.
I'm ready. I'd really like to get this painting started and not just wait for like 15 hours. Like this is... Come on. Please, don't get this started. Jesus, how long must I wait? I want to write painting now.
Okay, let's begin. So yeah, I got this really cool little cup of water too. It collapses. I can't turn it right now and show you because all the water would fall and spill on all of my computer equipment. But it's really cool. Again, in the name of portability, right? It all just collapses into like a disc about this big. So that's my friend, and I keep that here. Oh yeah, last but not least, I think anytime you're painting, having paper towels on hand, like literally in your other hand, ready to go, is really helpful too. Kind of like unloading your paintbrush can be just as important as what you put on it. All right. yeah, so I like to fold this up. Oh, who's that? Is that Blobby? Oh, dang. Hi, Blobby. Hi. All right, good to see you. Okay. So yeah, different people do different things. One thing you can do as you're getting ready is I take my big brush and dip it in the water and just sort of drop a little droplet in each pan of paint. And that just begins softening things up. And if anyone has any questions or whatever, feel free to shout things out. I'm just kind of freestyling, but you know, talking about some of the basic stuff here. Watercolor can be, you know, purchased or acquired in really two forms: pans like this, little trays, or tubes. And oftentimes, you know, it might be cheaper to buy a tube to refill your paints. But then the issue is, you know, if you use a tube right before you paint, all that paint is really wet. So it can be tough to subtly grab a little bit of a color if it's this big pile of wet watercolor and you get so much on your brush and then it, So yeah, you can squeeze out your tubes and fill up your pans a little bit in advance. Okay, so when painting, do you start outward and move in, or inward and move out, or is there no wrong way? Oh, God. What does that even mean?
I know what it means when you're painting. It's an inward shiver, and the reverberations echo their way through every cell and neuron in your body until it explodes in an outward manifestation and imprint for the eons, cast on the paper forever.
Oh, okay. Mask guy, quite outspoken on the issue. Me, I think, I don't know. I'm a big believer, like, in, for lack of a better term, cross training. So I think kind of every approach or everything in a book or, you know, methodology is sort of, you know, it came about for a good reason and it helped someone with how their brain works and everything. So it's by cross training, I think it's fun to kind of learn or try different approaches or philosophies simultaneously, because, you know, they can kind of, through their strengths and weaknesses and whatever, they can sort of unlock or help you understand like the reasons why those, you know, processes exist. So outward, inward, that kind of makes me think of, at least in like the drawing realm, a so-called like academic or atelier approach. It's sort of this historical way of, I guess it's bigger than that, but there's just this history of people sort of really carefully drawing this outwards envelope, like sort of in my webcam view here. Instead of drawing hair or a forehead or whatever, you know, if you look at my paintbrush, you might draw one line here and one line here and one line here, you know, and sort of just create, almost like you're carving out of wood, these big angles. And it starts off as this very simple but accurate envelope outward in, and then you continually complexify it and carve in and in and in and break out and extrude, and it kind of grows from there. And yeah, some people love that. It's a really interesting way to, that's like at workshops and things, if you ever see artists like holding up their pencils and measuring or comparing angles and stuff, that is often what they're doing. They're like, yeah, what is that? What? And then they bring it down and just transfer it to their page. So yeah, that can be really cool for sort of developing your sense of perception. It's also fun to, you know, maybe that seems like a little formulaic or something, but you can also, when you're drawing, you can guess an angle too and then check. You don't need to check and copy and check and copy. Sometimes it's fun to just look at something and be like, boy, like what proportion or what size is that, or what angle is that? What angle, what degree pizza slice is that shape? You know, is it the little one? Is it the double pizza? And and you can kind of make your mark, do your thing, and then just for information's sake, check that angle and sort of see what it is. That's often, I think, a cool thing to do, to kind of hybridize the approaches. Oh God, a pang of hunger hit me with the pizza. Yeah, drawing with the back of the brush is a really fun thing too with watercolor. So you just put some stuff down, and then you can just really push it out in these certain shapes. And yeah, that's a good question with the outside in. I think one of the fun things about watercolor for me too is so much of it feels out of control, or it's just a weird thing with, what's dictating what. How much is it just the water organically moving around and creating shapes? And oh, hello, Purple Platypus 711. And some of it is sort of your intentionality, and yeah, watercolor gives you this fun sort of layout of the intersection of those things. I think, I don't know, some people don't like watercolor because they say I'm a control freak and I can't handle all of the chaos, but on the other hand, I feel like I'm a control freak, which is why I like the chaos, the management, the crisis management of like clean up on aisle shirt and jeans, and it's just, there's always these weird liquid fires to put out. Yeah, so I don't know, I think having mediums or practices where, oh, hello Blobby, where maybe the nature of the medium sort of makes some of those decisions for you about the approach or whatever can kind of be fun to mix in. So here I'm laying down some water, and then, I was sort of doing this before, I'm going to grab some of this kind of crimson color and just drop it in and see what happens. So some of this purple, I forgot to fill up my paint before this, so we're going to be working with the dregs, as Tara says. Okay. Yeah, and also, watercolor is just a medium that begs a lot of questions, like what is a mistake, or what is, how can you even beat yourself up for anything? How can you enter artistic flagellation? Especially when it's a medium that, like everything here is going to dry lighter than it is now. So, you know what I mean? And certain things like this shirt grew too big. I don't know what happened there. But there are certain edge qualities that are going to happen when I erase and cut back in here with water. So it's probably too wet now, but let's just see what happens. So I can take a cleanish brush and then push into that and just remove some of it. And you see the edge quality. So from the tone, the color, to the white of the paper, now has this sort of smoky middle step. So that's a softer edge. And then right up here by the pectoral, the nipple, it's the muscular nipple container, and there's a harder edge, so meaning the interaction or relationship between the color and the paper is sudden. And wow, I almost dropped my brush. And anyways, so yeah, hard and soft edges are cool, much like if you think about kind of a photograph with depth of field, right? Our eye is often attracted to or drawn to harder edges. It's something to focus on. So yeah, in effect, if we pay attention, or not, but if our image has a variety of hard and soft edges, we're in some sense manipulating or facilitating a visual journey through the piece. Where to look, and where not to look.
Oh, I don't have anything to say. Can you go back and just keep on painting, please?
Okay. All right. So we got some color fields, some loose things laid in. One of the general macro workflows that I like with, I don't know, a lot of mediums is sort of, yeah, on the one hand, like that enveloping idea, working from big to small. In other words, general to specific. Part of that is there's some human compulsion, I think, to go in and obsess over little details and, you know, focus on something, when I'm more concerned with the big picture right now. Basic proportions, not in a careful measurement sense, but just in a feeling sense. Like, is this head, does it feel big enough? Probably not compared to mask guy, you know, that could grow. Is the slouch feeling okay? I think this arm is sort of weird, you know? So just, I would rather deal with that than any kind of wrinkle or fold or whatever. And that's part of the whole 3-brush policy mandated in 1965. So I'm pretty much doing everything with the big brush so far, partly because it's helpful and partly because it's going to keep me from getting in there with the details too soon. So it's almost like, you know, this, you have these built-in helpers for the part of you that is not helpful. Okay, excuse me, jaw man, can you leave? I'm trying to draw this arm and you're, hey, okay, you can go. Don't make me turn off the 30-minute jaw man peering OBS file. Okay, bye. Thank you. Oh my god. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah, you can go off that way too. Okay. You're right, patience. Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, you can go. Oh my. God, it's almost like we filmed this together in Tahunga 1 year ago. Okay, patience. You're right. Okay, he's gone. Okay, so one of the things I noticed about this arm, and this is sort of about gesture, that the elusive gesture idea, is when I look at the reference, that arm, think about that arm in terms of either, let's think about 3 things. A straight line, a so-called C, like the capital letter C curve, right? Just a schloop curve, or an S curve. So we can kind of look at a lot of things, like this leg on our reference. It's sort of like a stick, right? It's super foreshortened. It's coming right at us. It's just a stick. This one, kind of more drooping, sort of that C curve. If you look at the rhythm from the thigh to the leg, I'm off screen here, I know, but down to the foot, see how that kind of forms an S curve? It's like there's a rhythm poking out this way, and then one coming down this way all the way out through the foot. So you can kind of look at some of these things and just, you know, mentally or linguistically think about them in those sort of categories as some broad, you know, gestural helpers to make your shapes a little bit more distinct or organized. So anyways, when I look at this arm, in mine, it's like very, when I look at this arm, the visual experience is sort of 1, 2, right? It's like very geometric. And I think it would be, you know, in the reference at least, it's sort of a really subtle C curve. So I'm going to use my clean brush. So I'm putting my brush in the water. And here's where the paper towels come in handy, because if I were to erase with this brush now, it's totally waterlogged. So I'm going to use my paper, dab it a couple times, and most of that water is going to unload. And then I can sort of pull or push into this paint and take some of it off. And again, going back to what happened with the shirt, I can sort of predict that that's going to create a softer edge, and hopefully it's going to actually edit the contour or the overall shape of this arm. So yeah, I'm trying to round it out basically. Any of these sort of pinches here, which, you know, who knows? I mean, they could be really cool, but I'm just for the sake of it, there's this sort of chevron arrow pinch shape. So just for the experiment, I'm going to try carving into this a little bit and eating away at some of the paint here too. And that is to just sort of smooth out that curve. Now, some of it wasn't totally dry, so it bled out, but I'm just going to leave it because this is my world. This is. And then let me sort of try growing out. That sounds weird. I'm going to try expanding the face or the head. And then let's really just start jumping in. So yeah, it looks like if I inferred from the chat, Purple Platypus is drawing along. Yeah, if anyone's drawing along and you want to send stuff in to sunlandssunspace@gmail.com, I think it could be really cool, either at the end of this session or anytime in this session if we take a break, or at the beginning of the next session in about a month. You know, we could have we could start building sort of a shared archive of images and, you know, talk about them together and maybe sort of make a little virtual gallery space or something to hang these things. Okay, so a little bit more talking. A head is super complex, but I know I'm going to get to that complexity right now. What if you could think of the whole head as an egg or an egg-like form, a sphere basically? So, you know, forget all these colors and just think in terms of lightness and darkness. If this is an egg or a sphere and the light is basically kind of coming from this direction, as I can see on the reference, right? It's a little bit brighter on the right side here. Just imagine how a simple sphere or an egg would be lit, right? The shadow would be somewhere on the left-ish side. Oh my God. Okay, hi Blobby. So basically that's how I'm gonna kind of model this right now, is I'm just gonna grab a color. I'm thinking not color, I'm thinking value, meaning lightness and darkness. So any kind of color, I'm gonna grab some of this pink that I found up here, whatever, some brown. It could be a lot of things, because again, watercolor is gonna dry transparent and thin. So I'm probably gonna have to go over the shadow again to really make it dark enough. So what is the right color, you know, of anything, if you're gonna have to make a second pass anyways? That was the wrong color, by the way. So anyways, grabbing some of this red, and I'm just gonna paint this along here. So now what I'm trying to build up is a light side and a shadow side. Of course, this edge is super hard right now, so I'm gonna take a cleanish brush and just sort of drag it along the middle. And, you know, hopefully that softer edge sort of helps describe form turning. So it looks like I really painted like a Humpty Dumpty egg.
I don't really appreciate that. You painted my head like a Humpty Dumpty egg. What do you think I am? I'm a man. I have feelings. I have a heart. A heart that beats. And it sways in the wind like a lonely ancient palm tree, wishing it had coconuts to contribute to the world.
So yeah, Hikikomori says watercolor can do shadows. Yeah, I mean, I think what constitutes realism is sort of a tonal contrast. Again, like look at my webcam reality here. I've got a light hitting my forehead here. This stuff gets darker. My shirt's really deep value, right? Subtle range of values or full range of values. And I think watercolor, like many paint mediums, can be built up this way. Again, this is gonna probably dry a little bit lighter, so I might have to do another pass. And I'm gonna just, with this theme in mind, I'm gonna go down here and also kind of punch in some more shadows. So maybe when I take a break, I'll grab some more paints to kind of refill things, because it'd be nice to have a nice purple and stuff for this shirt. So yeah, I don't have a great purple. I'm all out of blues. What the heck? So I'm gonna grab something closer, as close as I can find. So this shadow, the reason why the shirt is getting darker here is because this egg-like form is blocking light from getting to the shirt, right? And the reason this is getting darker here is because form itself is turning away from the light source. So there's two broad breakdowns of shadows: form shadows and cast shadows, right? Light being blocked, and form, the planes or the topology of the form just rotating out of the light source. And each of those have different edge qualities. So light being blocked tends to, create some harder edges. Form turning is more of gradual, depending on how quickly the form turns. So what's an example? So the shadow from the back end of my brush, you can kind of see. And yeah, it's not so simple as like hard and soft edges only, right? You can see this cast shadow, right? It's a shadow from light being blocked by the brush. It's hardest at the point of contact, and then it's sort of getting softer. So look at all that variety. And then as I lift this off the paper, it's gonna sort of fuzz out and then get firmer and darker as it approaches. So yeah, within quote unquote hard edges, there's variety. So that whole thing of like the higher contrast and harder edge and then getting fuzzier, maybe I could try to show that even in this cast shadow. So how could I soften this edge? Maybe, just glazing some water over here, right? Or I'm gonna cheat and use my smaller brush, and what if I just sort of zigzagged some of this over, right? So I'm trying to create that effect of that darker, contrasty, harder edge, and then it's sort of fuzzing out. Oh man, painting is great. Painting's the best. I forgot how fun it is. It's so much fun. Let's see. So yeah, egg, even this whole torso, right? Whatever you want to call it in terms of a simple form, it's just, right? If you can feel it on your own torso, we have a side, and we have more of the frontal belly and the far side, which we can't see much of in this position, but that plane change from side to front is the reason why this is also getting darker here. So yeah, cast shadows and form shadows sometimes, come together and meet. So let's, hi Glitch. So anyways, I'm going to continue doing this with some of the arm stuff. Oh, and I want to talk a little bit about palette organization too. Okay, so even this arm, right? Don't think about a crazy complex arm, but just sort of simple cylinders or tubes, right? If this is a cylinder or a paper towel roll, and the light again is coming from this way, how would these forms sort of go into shadow? And it's mostly on the left side that they're going to go into shadow. And then yeah, with a clean brush, so I unloaded the brush in the water, and then I unloaded the brush on this paper towel, a little more water, and you can come back in and push and erase a little bit, and there you're putting in some of that lighter side of the cylinder. But again, if I just draw an upper arm, I'm gonna get a really segmented, chunky kind of image. So let's just carry this highlight idea all the way down the gesture of the whole arm and kind of keep it united. So yeah, just this is sort of shape, damage control, correcting that shape. And yeah, like even though it's a ridiculous weird egg thing right now, what's kind of interesting is our eye, like we talked about with edges, hard and soft edges, our eye tends to be drawn towards contrast of all sorts, contrast of color, textures, sizes of shape, edges, value contrast. So right now there's some really hard edges and dark value contrast that is sort of pulling my eye to this area, and that is called like a focal point. So yeah, one of the, oh god, okay, we gotta get this out of the blood zone. Although, I look at the reference and the eyes sort of have this orangish color, so maybe I can kind of use this as one of the eyeballs. Okay. So yeah, even a sketch or sometimes they're called thumbnail sketches, meaning like a really small little study or something. Sometimes those can almost metaphorically, contain the essence of what you're going towards on a longer piece. I feel like in some weird way, the digital age with painting is somewhat helpful sometimes, because I just remember making things before I always had a cell phone in my pocket, and sometimes like I wouldn't want to make changes on things because I'm like, oh, I might ruin it, so I'm stagnant, I'm stuck. I don't want to ruin this because it looks so good. And in some weird way, I found like once I had a phone, or I could post stuff online to share and, receive and return small hits of strange brain chemicals that create a false illusion of success and communal welcoming and value. Before that, or once I had that, I feel I could document the piece and then feel good about it. Like I can show this to myself. I know what I made. And then I would feel more confident or willing to take some so-called risk, with the image and just do something. So another kind of fun, this is not normally how I paint these things, but it's sort of the way this one's coming together. Lost edges are a really fun concept too. So, I'm not sure if I want to paint some of, this background. Like there's a lot of stuff we could put in of that shack, or the green forestry, or any kind of suggestion of environment. Right now it's sort of the weight of the paper. So this is sort of what's called a lost edge, where it's open. There's no line defining the edge of the head here, and that stuff can be cool because it can kind of be an entryway for our eye. So some of these shapes, like this leg here, this hard edge and value contrast, right, dark, light, it's sort of like a fence, it's creating a shape for me to look through, but it's closed off. So sometimes opening your shapes, whether it's on accident or it just happens or you try to, can be a cool way of bridging the whole piece. And yeah, in some kind of weird way integrating the piece with the environment without even drawing an environment. I don't know what that means. So let's see, it's 2:48. Yeah. All right, so I think I'm gonna put the big brush down now. When you get to a point, or at least the way I see it, when I'm at a point where I think I can smell frustration ahead from using the biggest brush I have to try to do eyeballs and smaller things, I put it down. It's like, I think its time is over, and I'm gonna grab the next brush down, which is hopefully still a little bit too large compared to what the demon painter wants to do. And anyways, so eggs within eggs and spheres within spheres. So this whole forehead form, you could think of that, you can sort of see it, right? That It's going from lighter to darker. There's this eyebrow. These eyebrows are all some sort of elongated not rectangle, spherical form. And so I'm just going to drop some color in here, and I'm thinking about modeling this eyeball as some sort of egg-like form. The nose, right? Just thinking of it as a big form. There's going to be this weird ass lips, a big chin. I'm going to kind of drag that shape out. It's weird, I'm painting looking at the screen and not even at the piece right now. And yeah, I think I saw in the comments Purple Platypus, was maybe doing the opposite and sort of jumping right into some wrinkles and things. And then, someone asked at the beginning, about process and sort of either working from the outside in or the inside out. And yeah, I think they're all totally, good ways of working, and they're gonna definitely yield some different results. Okay, so this sort of really spread out. Gonna just try that again. So yeah, if the concepts of painting could be put into a triangle, I think there's drawing at the base of that pyramid, a pyramid, not a triangle. So 3 main considerations. Drawing, even though the medium we're doing is watercolor, which is a paint, the concept of drawing as defined as the placement of shapes, their gesture and whatnot, is probably the most important, right, when it comes to trying to represent something such as it is. And then above that is value. So that's the lightness and darkness of things. And that is what's going to be responsible for our forms turning, right, and having some kind of light source and shadow. So that's not really a color concern, right? It's a value concern. So different colors might have different intrinsic values, like it's hard to imagine a really dark yellow or something, right? But yeah, on the tip of that pyramid of concepts is color then, right? Sort of the third consideration. So it's kind of weird because on the one hand, I think color, there's a saying, value does all the work, color gets all the credit. So oftentimes, we look at stuff and we're like, oh, that's a beautiful color. Yeah, and it is, or maybe it is, but it's really sort of the organization of the values, which, lets there even sort of be, makes, it sort of lets that color even make sense in the first place. So with this eye, I put down this shadow of this ball that I'm trying to make, and it's a blue. And what I'm really seeing, and what I wish my palette had, was a nice purple or a violet or something, but I had some kind of weird blue. So I used that, knowing that it's sort of the wrong color, but it's dark enough and it's in that kind of coolish color range, so it'll work for now. Maybe I can swap it out later with something. Because again, with watercolor, you often have to go over your shadows anyways to kind of punch them in. Kind of fun when the paper melts away as you're painting a paper mache. Seems like not the most inappropriate thing. Okay, and I think, in terms of that drawing concern, I could make the forehead a little bit bigger. Like I'm sort of planning it out. If this is the eyeball, This is going to be kind of the underside of that eyebrow lump. And then I can sort of visually just gauge, like, okay, then that would leave me this much forehead. And I guess it's not that far off. Maybe instead of adding more forehead, I'm going to add some kind of line that makes the hair go a little bit higher. Because, like, you know, the gesture or essence of this mask head dude it's very tall, right? If you, again, let's use the enveloping outside, you know, methodology. If you drew 4 lines around that head, just straight lines, you know what I mean? It would look something like, right, like that or whatever. So that's sort of the character of the shape. So doing something like adding on this hair, I think could kind of help. So I'm going to using my smaller brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm sort of putting down some color that I'm going to take off a bunch. So I use something kind of green, and I don't exactly know why. I think it's because, you know, even when I was editing some of these digital files to put in this environment, I figured, like, if we're in a forest, there's probably light bouncing off of the foliage and onto even the figure and stuff. So, you know, that was one thought of, like, let's just start getting a little bit of the environment in here in some form or another. Maybe I'll add it for real. But also, I was totally planning on coming in here and now pushing off a bunch of this to kind of show that whitish hair. And yeah, just leaving elements of this line separation to kind of show the forehead ending, the hair starting, right? A little bit of that darker edge of the water bleed to kind of show an edge. Maybe somewhere, maybe here again, I open up that edge, right? So just totally keep it open and our eye can kind of pass through. And let's see. I'm gonna try to just, yeah, looks like the Joker or something really terrifying. So I'm gonna try putting in some of these lips. So let's see, the nose is gonna go about here. So maybe since I have so much dark in here, the way I can show the nose rather than putting more darks is going back in here and erasing out. So I cleaned off the brush, right? I'm putting it in the water, unloading a lot of that water off on my paper towel or my pant leg, feeling it seep into the thigh and transfer deadly pigment into my bloodstream. And yeah, you can really kind of control the edge. So again, 2 types of shadows, right? Light being blocked, cast shadow, and form turning, a form shadow, softer edge. So what's happening here edgewise is there's a harder edge right here because this is the light being blocked from this eyeball ball. So that's making this harder edge. So I can, when I'm erasing, I can really tilt my brush and carve a way to create that harder edge. I'm just gonna kind of exaggerate it. See, it's putting the highlight right up to that edge. And then where I have this form shadow happening, right, which is sort of the form of the nose going into darkness as it just turns around, you know, in its blobular form, I can sort of just feather up the brushes to preserve a little bit of a harder edge. Okay, and then I'm just going to sort of continue this idea of erasing some things out here to maybe bring up a cheekbone. And it's hilarious to talk about anatomy with these things, but yeah, so I'm just thinking back to that egg form. Okay, how do you get re-encouraged once yours turns into a blob of paper balls? So we maybe have some Q-tip going on. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a couple practical concerns, and then there's ideas, and maybe there's There's a falafel. There's a philanthropic. Is it a philos? There's a philosoph. Then there's, yeah, I don't know. There's some different ways of dealing with it. I think watercolor is a time-based medium in a lot of ways. Sometimes there are areas that are too dang wet to mess with, and you actually have to kind of keep in mind, like, I know I haven't worked on anything here in a long time, so I could touch it, right? This stuff here, you can kind of maybe see some of the highlights, right? It's totally wet. So yeah, depending on how you work, if you're someone who's like working on everything at the same time, maybe everything is still wet. And if you want to, like this edge thing I did here where I carved away at the shape to make a harder edge, I waited till that had dried. If this darker shadow from the eyeball was still wet, every time I would have tried to erase, it would have just seeped into this light shape of the nose I was trying to make. So I think that's one thing. It depends on how you work and just getting a sense of like what's wet and what's dry. Sometimes you really have to take a break. Another big thing, and I'm about at this point, an hour into this already, your water. So yeah, dirty ass water is a big frusterizer, I think, right? I like to erase a lot, so I'm relying on dipping in here to kind of clean stuff off. And whoops. Oh no, what happened? Oh no. Okay. And yeah, when the dirtier this gets, the less effective the erasing is. And you can kind of test it. You put some on your paper towel and see it stain the towel. So yeah, sometimes the best thing you can do is take a break and fill up your water. I'm going to change mine out now too. It's probably a good time. So yeah, those are a couple practical things, I think, right? What's wet, what's dry? Are you trying to fight an uphill battle by working on things that are just going to repeatedly, you know, re-mush and mush and mush? And then the other approach or thought might be, yeah, and one of the beautiful things with a water-based medium is it's all drying relatively quickly, right? Some oil paints and stuff might take a days or weeks,
you know, to dry. And so, yeah, I just think, you know, my recommendation for all you people out there is, I mean, look, this guy painting me, he's not that good, okay? But I think he's got a winning attitude.
Oh no, you don't have to. That's embarrassing. Oh, don't talk. Please don't talk. I'm just a guy, and I'm just trying my best out here, and I don't really want the attention. Can we keep this on you and the question that the student asked, please? Thank you.
Okay, fine. Geez, so anyways, geez, he's a little shy, I guess. What the anyways. So yeah, I think watercolor is a medium where it's all, like, I know I'm just a model, but I think I deserve a break. I've been posing for an hour, Jesus, and it's a medium where it's all gonna dry really quickly. It all dries a little bit lighter than you intended, so a lot of things are gonna need a second pass. And I just think, like, so many times, some of my artist friends and myself, when doing some paintings as a hobby, I've noticed that I can't trust myself. I can't. I make every day, in every painting, I make wrong calls. I go, oh, you idiot. Oh, that boo-boo, poo-poo, you made a 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 poo-poo. And yeah, I've just learned that through the process of building up a painting, it's just, you never know.
you know, you just never know. Just certain things might be your favorite marks by the end of it. And yeah, and that's just, I think that's just the nature of the beast. So anyways, I'm gonna refill my water. Let's put on our little BRB sign. So yeah, here's a little, I put the BRB with our model still here. So if anyone's working on anything, hopefully you can continue to. I'll be back in just a minute or two, fill up some water, order some Dominoes, basic things. And yeah, any questions or anything, feel free to ask. And we'll come back and paint for another, you know, a little less than an hour or something, and we'll just see how far I get with what I'm doing. And yeah, if anyone wants to email stuff in, that'd be cool to see what you're doing. Anyways, BRB.
Alright.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna get started in a second, but I see there's some emails coming through, so I'm gonna download these images real quick. And okay, cool. So we're gonna get started in a second, but I see there's some emails coming through, so what am I hearing? I'm gonna download these images real quick. And okay, I think there might have been some echo for a second. Let's see. So here we go. We got Nick's. Let me download this. Cool. All right. Yeah, so here we have a drawing by Nick Spencer. Hey, Nick. Thanks for sending this in. Oh, look. Paula sent in one too. Okay, let me gather these. Oh, look at that. Rose Hoffman. 2 nice, 1 fail. Okay, so let's just... Whoa, sick, Paula. Let me load this in. Let's see. So I'll work on my speed flow a little bit for the next one of getting these down here, but just take a second more or 30 seconds more. No one's counting, Chris. Yeah, this is so cool. Yeah, I think what I want to do via miniature physical miniatures or the Unreal Engine or something, a graphics engine, is make a little gallery space so we can kind of that we can decorate with our digital post-it notes of drawings. Okay, so I got one for Eddie. Oh, what up, Eddie? Let me download roses here. Download, download, download. Oh wow, they look really cool from the little thumbnails. And then Eddie, here we go. Okay, so that's all I'll download for now, and then if more come in, we'll just do one last look-see at the end. Throw it into Gary's mod. Oh my god, I really miss playing Gary's mod. So fun. Okay, so hopefully you guys see some of these coming in. You go here, you go there, you go there, you go there. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Oh wow, and look at that watercolor. Okay, and let's see, did I get Eddie's? Screenshot 2021. No, not yet. So let me download yours. Okay, so let's see. First time doing digital watercolors. I wonder if there's like a digital app that emulates like water flow. Okay. Wow, cool. So whose is whose? Yeah, so why don't you type in if you're in the chat real quick. So who's on the left? I think that's Nick on the left with the red pen. And yeah, okay. Cool, Nick. So you're in the red pen. And then Purple Platypus 711 sent in a few. I think the graphite or the one on the bottom right, the middle bottom watercolor, and then the yellow. Rose, was that your dad's? The drawing with the yellow dude with the red pants? Oh, no. The bottom right is Pow's. That's right. I'm ballpoint, bottom right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, those pants and stuff, Pow, and like, his expression, or its expression, their expression. Look at that. You can see a little face inside the mask. I wonder who that is. Dang. I wish, yeah, and that's where, I don't know if anyone has any ideas for the future of this, monthly, art hangout. Let me know, especially technically, because that's where I think Zoom could be cool for this sort of thing, is to have a more responsive, or whatever feedback, and just people getting to share and stuff, and a little less one person saying everything. So, but yeah, these are really cool. Everything's in a different medium practically. Ballpoint pen, pencil in the top right, watercolor in the bottom, digital watercolor by Eddie in the bottom left, or the bottom middle kind of left. A bunch of stuff. Crayon, I don't even know for that top one. Super cool. He looks like he's driving a car or something. Whoa! Marlon says a silly background and red lips. That's awesome. Well, geez, I mean, I wonder what mask guy says. The upper right is yours. Cool.
Yeah, maybe, maybe I could have a say, because they're images of me, and maybe it'd be nice for me to get to talk for a second here. So, wow, I'm really flattered, guys. This is really a treat for me. I've been in storage for like months, and I've just been slowly devoured by silverfish and rats. It's disgusting. I gotta say though, the small fecal pellets are beginning to grow on me. They sort of remind me of a cousin to a tater tot, and with similar flavor and with the right spices, boy, I mean, I... anyways, yeah. Yeah, I think the watercolor one is really awesome. Let me see. Let's compare it to Chris's. Yeah, it looks. I mean, I think, and I make that comparison just because I think you were applying the concepts that he was talking about in a very studious manner. And I look at the contrast. Okay, yeah. If we look at the watercolor one, just I like to say, unhinge your neck. Like, roll your neck around and let it be free. And as you're looking at the piece, try to feel where where your attention is magnetically drawn towards. And if I look in the lower right, again, I'm looking at this one here. If I look in the lower right, zoom. Look in the upper right, zoom. I look at the pant leg, zoom. I try to look at that far arm, zoom. I'm being led like a magnet straight to the head. And that's that contrasty focal point developing, which is, I think, a really fun thing to work on. So even though the head in this watercolor is not finished, shoop, I think this thing even has like a, I think this thing even has like a, I think this thing even has like, I think this thing even has, I think this thing even has like, I think this thing even has like a, I think this thing even has like a, I think this thing even has like a sampler on it. It's pretty crazy. But anyways, let's look at the marlins in the upper left. So while I think Rose's in the bottom right, the watercolor has this really strong focal point of the head. Even though the head's not finished, there's not a lot of details in the eyes and lips. Abstractly, there's that focal point. And then Marlin's in the upper left, I'd argue that the contrast is sort of spread out, right? There's things to look at in the background. There's toes. Look at that. He drew toes. He drew the stool or the Maya couch. He drew the Maya couch, and that's awesome, right? But I still feel like my eyes want to go to that head, and I think a lot of that is the expression and stuff. So, right, the focal point can be created on more abstract, visual component type ways, and it can also be because, like, an expression or something is literally like interesting or funny to look at. Maybe I'm breaking it down a little unnecessarily, given that we're just drawing a dude on a chair. Like, we're gonna look at the head, of course, but yeah, it still could be worth pointing out, geez. But yeah, these are all really cool. Very different gestures too in the body language between Pal's and Rose's drawing. I think is really interesting. The different angle of the legs in the bottom right, Pal's, the legs are more parallel, and it's sort of, you feel this, yeah, like if you had to draw those outside lines around the whole body of Pal's in the lower right, it's pretty rectangular, and then Rose's, those legs are much more splayed out, and it's almost a triangular shape up to the head, and imagine they're like two totally different characters. You can imagine them talking to each other. Maybe maybe Rose's in the upper right would be a lot more like, oh, hi, And then maybe Pals is more like. Anyways, really cool. Great stuff. Eddie, I like what you're doing. It looks like Simpsons colors too. Yeah, and you kind of made his head into more of a profile view where we see the nose. The nose has its own silhouette, right? So that makes it look like we're looking at the head from more of a side view because we see that silhouette poking out. Also a pretty somber kind of, what is he doing on that chair? Working digitally can be really fun. I think, you know, you could add so many things in the background and whatnot. But yeah, really, it's got this melancholic gaze. Nick's, yeah, yours, that is a maniacal expression. Hilarious. Super cool. Well, anyways, guys, that was really fun. Here we go. So yeah, I'm just gonna, oh, wait, no, who's...
Okay. So yeah, I think, I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna just, maybe spend another, 25 minutes or so, 30 minutes, just developing this a little bit further, and then kind of call it for today. Yeah, thanks for sending this in. Okay, so can you talk about the digital one? It's just a strong stream. Yeah, let's see the digital one. Yeah. So this is Eddie's. I miss you, Eddie. I remember that one time you did that music set on a Tuesday. That was so cool. Maybe if you ever want to make music for one of these, whether it's live somehow or pre-packaged, that could be really cool. Yeah, now as I stare at that little digital guy, he's sort of like on a little cosmic surfboard. And he's just gliding. He's gliding.
Just gliding. Sensible.
And it almost looks like you even drew a little protective shell around the head, like an astronaut, a space, a cosmic, like those the bubble boy, the hat, the helmet, the see-through shield helmets. Yeah, it'd be fun to make that guy flying in space. That's practically, he's a mascot. We're all drawing mascots of Sunspace. All right. So I think, you know, as you approach the end of it, or the whatever amount of time that you have is, you know, now you can sort of switch to that smaller brush and get in there with some of the other details. And anytime we take a break and come back, and again, this is sort of within the paradigm of representational painting, I think. You know, remember that process of going from dark to light, simple, complex, right? And given the fact that watercolor tends to kind of dry lighter than we wanted, when you come back from a break, reinstantiating or re-plopping in the darks is a great place to start, because the darker values they're kind of a gimme, right? Like that deep accent in between the lips, you know, that's not the hardest thing to paint out of all the stuff here, right? It needs to be a really dark value. And well, if I'm trying to, you know, paint a portrait or something alive, I usually want to put in maybe a warmer color, something in the reds or scarlet or whatever. So yeah, it's sort of it's a way to get back into the painting. And you know, every value that we see is sort of relative by comparison to what's around it. So if we come in here and do some of the easier moves, like the darker things and whatnot, it makes our decision making easier for the rest of it, right? Because and that's kind of, sometimes that's called keying. I think keying means a lot of things in a lot of contexts, but maybe in this case it means we're unlocking. It's a key. It's the crucial the crucible bread strike. It's the key ingredient in a strange trail mix that leads you to the answer. So another fun thing to do that I haven't really talked about is, you know, I've shown erasing to make highlights, but instead of just cleaning off the brush so it's, you know, devoid of any paint, you can clean off most of the brush, then go to your palette and grab a little bit of some lighter transparent color. So maybe a little bit of this red. So it's like my brush is stained with this color. It's not totally loaded, but it's not totally empty. And now when you erase, hopefully, instead of just making it lighter in value, you can transfer some of that color too. So it's just sort of it can be a bit of a time saver. Again, if I'm trying to paint red lips and raise the value up a little higher, meaning make them brighter, right? Instead of erasing them so I get this kind of washy color, if I maybe preload the brush with a little bit of red and then do my erasing, it's like this 2-in-1 move. Buy 6 cans of tuna, get 5 cans of chili for the price of 6 cans of tuna, and 1 pan of chili for the price of 6 cans of chili, and the price of 1 can for chili for the price of 6 cans of chili for the price of 1 can of 6 cans of chili for the price of 6 cans for the price of 6 cans of chili for the price of 1 can of corn. So yeah, everything. I mean, even these weird lumpy ass, even these beautifully organic and special lips, right? This was all once a, this is paper mache, right? It's a mass, it's a form, so it has a bulk to it. And just like the forehead, just like the eye, just like the nose, just like the torso, it could be thought of or conceived of as some sort of egg-like volume where there's a highlight hitting it and then the edges are getting darker as they recede away from the light source. So I'm gonna use another brush now to kind of try to clean up maybe some of the red, because again, it's that weird Joker thing. An opportunity for another open edge, right? So this is an open edge here. The lips don't have to be closed off. Maybe there's a passageway through here. Chin's looking decent, but I'm gonna try to grow it. I always say that, it sounds so weird, but I'm gonna make the shape a little bit bigger. So trying to push out some of here. Have this go out, up. And a cool thing that I have missed completely, but now I see, is I think it could be nice if you see there's a shoulder here and there's the chin here, but I think it'd be nice if the head was shown wrapping behind that shoulder as well, if that makes sense. So I'm painting a little bit of dark stuff here to take off some. I just want to show that the head is not just a flat thing in front of the shoulder, but that it's sort of, it's even like resting on top of the shoulder. So yeah, overlaps create depth. That's, you know, hard and soft edges are a really important way of creating three-dimensional illusionistic form, but also simple overlaps, right? One thing passing behind another. This is like the most drawn thing in teaching for me, but it's just this concept of one thing in front of another, and then we get the recession of space, right? Or things coming forward. And then anywhere where that overlap, that 90-degree-ish angle is, if we accent what's on that line, we're bringing contrast and therefore attention and clarification to that overlap. We can do more things like, what if number 2 was just converted into a different value? Now these are even more separate. You know, what if number 4 here, the lines don't even touch, right? There's atmosphere in between, and we lower the contrast by darkening the paper. It's endless, right? But you can just create a lot of space that way. So I'm trying to show the head or the cheek flab going behind the shoulder by adding on that little extra chunk. What have we got? Free range chili going on here? Yeah, we should do an episode of ArtLab at the Sizzler. We should make a digital Sizzler and a Blockbuster video. I think that's important. So yeah, maybe I just mixed some dark anything. I think it's a little dark blue. And maybe, you know, I'm gonna kind of use it almost like a line in a drawing. See, this area is still a little wet here, so I'm having to use a really light touch. I'm just dropping the paint on because, you know, I don't want to just lift off what I just put on. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to show some shadow right in this little crevice. Trying to separate these shapes more to try to show that overlap. And then let me just clean up this. I think I have a painting here. I've done a bunch of little things like this, but this was a painting of Mask Guy, another little demo. Oh yeah, it's a painting of Mask Guy painting. Yeah, I quite enjoy painting these little dudes. I think this was a demo for another class. It's Maya in Mask. So yeah, again, if anyone has characters they want, I mean, in some sense, these workshops, you know, I'd love to do them in person. I'd love to have people like musicians or models who could physically, you know, be with me in a space, but with things as they are, you know, maybe we can try things like if anyone has any characters and they want to dress up or pose or send in, you know, even a small loop of them sitting or breathing, or it could be stationary, and they want to kind of pose for a future session, you know, you can feel free to reach out or send that in too. That could kind of be fun. You have a Mr. Chompers puppet. Yeah, and like we could do that. Like there could be a whole, someone did like a hand puppet show and recorded it, could send that in, and that, you know, we could illustrate scenes from the little play or something, or freeze frame and whatever. So there's a lot of things we can try. Okay, so the mouth is strange, but it's coming in. I'm gonna look at the clock. Okay, so maybe a little less blab. I always say that, it's impossible. Okay, definitely. So what's the rule, right? Punch in the darks. That's a great way to get back in the game. So I'm gonna go for some things like the nostrils. One phrase that was really helpful for me with painting is, we've kind of talked about it a little today, but mixing for value and adjusting for color. So that's kind of alluding to that pyramid of painting thing, with the drawing at the base and then the value and then the color. So it's a little bit of a semantic-y phrase, but mixing for value and adjusting for color means value is the most important thing. So when I move my arm to my palette, I'm mixing colors to mainly get in the right ballpark of the value, light and darkness, and then adjust it to get the right color. So this dark accent in the nose or the mouth, a dark anything would do, whether it's black, brown, a dark blue, a dark green, even like just whatever gets me, in the right range. And then I could grab some other color and tint it or adjust it, shift it to then be in the right color wheel zone, if that makes sense. So maybe over here I could clarify a couple things. And this is something where I'm like, wait, I kind of want to erase and just really make it clear. There's the shoulder and then there's a vertical of the head. But there's a tyranny of clarity too and logic. So I don't know if I go in here and clean that up. Maybe it's kind of nice, just the stuff over here. So I'm going to keep that in my head. Like that was an idea, and I'm going to hold council and have several representatives from each team meet over ramen. And we're going to discuss the validity of that move and come back later. Okay, I'm gonna give a little bit more something shadow to the underside of the nose to try to really give it an underside. And yeah, so I think sometimes you get to a point too where, yeah, we like to work general to specific, but sometimes if you're running up against time, I think you need to stop that and just finish a part that is going to make you happy, right? Finish something that is why you started the piece in the first place. So if this is a portrait of a dude and I haven't even drawn, any eye detail, there's nothing I can do to any of these other parts. I think that will make it feel satisfying in that way. So yeah, it's like I like to work in that one way, and then at some point you kind of jump off of that ship and just actually commit and try to see through one of the key elements that drew you to the piece in the first place. In this case, it's these weird eyes. Gonna put that in. think it'd be really, again, with the overlap thing, it'd be nice to see that far big eyebrow push, kind of like Eddie's drawings nose, the digital one, right? If we see this form interrupt and take part in the contour, you know, we'll get much of a greater sense of its dimensionality. So sort of have this shape push out, and then there's the eyeball here. So maybe I can use the shadow of the eyebrow to show the curvature of this eyeball and not have to draw the whole ball. And then I'll accent maybe. I think no amount of detail would have made the eye work without some more shadow to kind of get that spherical form. And yeah, one last thing with the whole big, medium, and small brushes, and you know what the eye is drawn to, and you know that idea of our eye being drawn to contrasts of all sorts. You know, one way to think about it is, I think at any time we can kind of work with, do it here, you know, big, right, maybe medium and small shapes. So big, medium, and small, right? You can make a piece that has all of these types of shapes, or all small shapes, all medium shapes, all big shapes, whatever, any kind of distribution, but our eye is attracted towards anomalies. So part of the reason, or I guess one of the nice things about using, you know, mainly a big brush or a medium brush for most of it is your shapes tend to be these larger, simpler, you know, passages, right? And then as you creep up to your focal point, to finish it off, and you switch to your smaller brush, you're going to start making smaller and smaller shapes. And the ratio or the percentage of those shapes hopefully is one where, you know, the smaller shapes are a little bit more rare, and it'll just be another layer of emphasis, right? Or drawing the eye to look at that area. So yeah, emphasis by anomaly, emphasis by value contrast, emphasis by edges are all different ways of kind of bringing the eye. You can imagine painting like a portrait, you know, like this, or a more naturalistic one or something, and you know, maybe you're getting to the eyes sort of at the end, and some of the last shapes maybe you paint are highlights on the pupil, right, or in the eye, and they're just like, you know, you have like a 1 hair brush or a 2 hair brush or something, and you just get to place these dots of paint in as sort of the final marks. And yeah, in some sense, maybe there's no other part of the painting where marks that tiny exist, except for in those pupils, or in whatever highlight shape you drew or painted. I think one fun thing about painting too is it's some sort of weird metaphor for compromise. So this was that area where oftentimes the dialogue in my head trying to make decisions is very yes or no. I'm like, do I do this or that? And oftentimes I've sort of as an exercise, I like to just challenge myself to find something that satisfies both. So, you know, with there, I was like, do I clean up that edge or leave it sort of abstract and messy? And after thinking about it for a while, I sort of came up with an approach where maybe I just, you know, fuzz out part of it and leave the rest. And then, you know, I can sit on it a little bit longer and come back. And if I really want to commit and clean up the whole thing, you know, maybe I can. But yeah, it's like there's a million painters within you, and they all have different ideas. And they're like, you know, they're like, and you're just like, listen, you two, take a chill pill. Relax. One of them wants McDonald's, the other one's Jack in the Box. What do we do? And you find a way to feed both of them. And if you don't, like, that's good too. So yeah, I think a key for this part was the hierarchy of value. So it was pulling off enough of this paint so that this was a highlight and this was relatively darker. And then it'd be great to kind of try to somehow show this eyebrow more. So maybe it's a correlation issue. It's like eyebrows are symmetrical, or, you know, in some sense, they're both mobile, but they are symmetrical. So I use sort of a yellow greenish color here, and then it's sort of just warmer here. So maybe even just by putting over, glazing on some of that similar color, I'll create a repetition, you know, that will kind of, you know, if not illustrate, suggest that those are similar forms. Okay, it's tempting. I kind of want to show more of the whites of the eyes, but that's a whole topic in itself about, well, maybe for next time. Maybe I'm gonna just try darkening the pupil more. I guess that's one thing that maybe isn't caught on screen, but I find that I'm using my finger to reshape the brush often. So I clean it off in the water, unload the water, a lot of it on a paper towel, and then use my finger to kind of create a sharper shape. And then you can make a more, okay, and then it fails, but that's kind of the idea. Push, push, push. There's a really cool book I got, and I regrettably haven't finished it, but it's called, it's sort of cheesy, but it's called like, dang it, it's like the breaking the rules of watercolor. And yeah, it's basically this fun little book, and it chronicles this one watercolor artist's journey through life and painting, and you know, sort of like all of these secrets with watercolor that he found over the years. And the main thing it came down to was the paper, the surface he used. Because his point was, ooh, I just saw an opportunity for a cast shadow accent here. Let me get this real quick. Basically, he thought, like, you know, he worked in other mediums too. And it's like, for him, and I can kind of relate to this, basically, like, you know, we want to be in the moment and free to experiment, right? And just try things out. But oftentimes, if there's a sense of permanence with our actions, right, or a drastic consequence, we might not want to make that leap. That sounds so dramatic. It must be the Enchanted Forest music. But I guess it's kind of like the thing I was saying with the whole iPhone, Instagram thing, and how I think it kind of, you know, photo documenting your work as you go can kind of free you in some way, because you're not afraid to lose anything because you've got proof. But anyways, he found, like, with oil paint or another medium like drawing or something, you know, he felt like he could make those leaps because there was sort of an undo button. Oil paint stays wet forever, you can rework it, you can cover it, you can scrape it, you can do all sorts of stuff. But watercolor has this like mythos of scariness, you know, it's like, I can't mess up because it'll be forever ruined. So he's really into this kind of erasing thing. You know, for me, it's like you see over here where it's like actually ripping up the paper. And, you know, I happen to be at a phase of life where that's not the worst thing. And I'm drawing a paper mache guy, so it's kind of fun. But basically, in the book, he chronicles trying out all of these different papers and even gessoing. So using like a white acrylic paint and coating the watercolor paper, almost laminating it with this smooth plastic paint, so that when it dries, it creates this really smooth surface that he can watercolor on top of, and then with a towel or a rag, undo, right? Just wipe stuff back off. So basically, once he found the perfect paper preparation technique that granted him the ability to undo, he felt like he was painting with oils or something, you know, and then therefore kind of free to experiment in a lot of ways, and just be in a certain state of mind of you know, when working, and not so cautious. So that's been on my to-do list for like 5 years. It's like, you know, one day I'm gonna actually try some different papers and really see, you know, what works with how I want to paint and stuff. For now, I'll just keep ripping paper. Another thing that some people use is like white gouache. So gouache is another paint medium that's sort of an opaque watercolor. And you can use white gouache, and like, imagine this area, you could just paint a value very similar to the white of the paper and carve out the exact silhouette that you want. So yeah, this whole erasing thing does have a little bit of a time limit. Sometimes the paint has just soaked into the teeth of the paper to where you can't lift off much anymore. speaking of trying stuff, I'm just gonna try something. This is kind of just in principle. I'm like, I did not build a miniature shack and tree and plateau to not paint it at all. So whatever this sketch is, or whether I think that these moves are helping or hurting, which, you know, could be the former, I'd almost rather have the story, you know, at least if it's just for my sentimentality reasons. I just want sort of the history of like building this little set in this, you know, watercolor sketch. I was thinking back to that purple platypus question too when I was taking a break, you know, about resurrecting or saving something or whatever when a piece is messed up. And, you know, I was thinking like some artists even like work on multiple things at the same time. Like, you know, they have like in their studio 5 or 10 or 3 paintings going on at once. So I was thinking, you know, maybe even if people do that kind of thing, you know, maybe they avoid some of that stress of like having to save, you know, a painting in jeopardy, because it's just part of their practice to rotate to something else and then come back. And I mean, I'm sure it's that has its own challenges too. But yeah, I feel like taking breaks and stepping away is probably like the hardest and most helpful things to get some perspective on it. I guess you can't really see what I'm painting here. So yeah, we're at 4:04. So speaking of breaks and stepping away, I think I'm, you know, gonna just about call it quits with this. And on my own time, I want to come back and I'm sure I will see a couple things that I want to do. Like some little accents in the fingers, I think would be cool. You know, I could try to find a way to still keep this hand really loose and a little abstract, but specific with some, you know, accents and things could be kind of cool. And yeah, some darker tone on the forearm here to sort of push it back in space and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm just I'm entering the sloppy mood portion of things, so kind of silly. That nose is ridiculous. Yeah, and I added this warm smudge of an ear, which I didn't really see in the reference, but it just sort of felt like, I think I was thinking about those cooler eyebrows or having some kind of eyebrow color, and then I don't know, maybe he'd feel a little bit more alive or relatable or humanish if he had some warm fuzzy ear thing there. And yeah, doing I think I put down water first for like this tree and whatnot, and then just drop some darker color, so it kind of fused really softly and made an edge that might actually be kind of realistic of the way hair looks. So paper mache hair has a really hard edge, right? But human hair is softer and tends to kind of meet the environment a little fuzzier. So I think that's another kind of fun thing with painting these inorganic masks and stuff, is like you can pick and choose some moments to, put a little bit more life into it. Okay. Yeah. Like the smoke coming off of it.
That was fun. I'm gonna have my assistant check the email right now and just make sure that no other art came in and we can take a look at, but let's see. No, that's it, okay. Alright everyone, well, Squidward. Well, oh wow, look at that, some strange textures are appearing as it dries. Like, what is all that? Like, what the heck? Huh. Watercolor's just a funky medium. Oh, look at that, it's my vocal transformer. Do you know that 11 minutes before this art session, my microphone cord broke, and I had to run to my garage and, and I had to run to my garage and find another cord, and I luckily had one. And I mean, I'm really trying to work on rolling with the punches and going with the flow and life in general, but I mean, I would have been just so angry if I couldn't have done, some of these vocal manipulations with the voice. I mean, it's not that, I was thinking about this too at Fresco Market when I was getting a yerba mate, and it's like, I don't necessarily have a crystal vision of how I want the thing to look, but I have a feeling for how I want it to feel. So, even sometimes snafus happen, and it's not that, I struggle because it's not that, it's like, yeah, I should be able to make do without a vocal transformer, my vocal transformer, but it's not just that, it's that it was gonna, I thought it would create certain feelings, a certain atmosphere. Alas, I digress. I don't even know what that means. Alright, well, guys, I just want to give a shout out to everyone here. Thanks for hanging out. Excuse me. Oh, God. Anyways, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for making some It was so much fun making a whole pile of I really enjoyed it, Jesus. And I hope that we continue hanging out. The next one is, the basic idea for these is they're gonna be, I think the third Monday each month, I'm pretty sure. So I think the next one is, March 15th. And I'm just gonna be open actually about an idea I had. So, real quick before we go, in addition to doing, this type of, workshop and guided drawing stuff, I'd like to use this show or this time slot to also feature other arts and crafts that people in the community make. So maybe you knit, maybe you carve, maybe you take photographs, maybe you cook, maybe you paint, maybe you weld, maybe you draw, maybe you craft, maybe you scrapbook, maybe you do all sorts of things. I think it'd be really cool. Hit us up, hit us up on that email, the email, and I mean, there's so many ways to integrate it. Like maybe, you know, I could be demoing and we could take a break, and it's almost like a little, I don't want to say ad or a commercial break, but it's just it's a little vignette into what someone does, and maybe it's something you buy, trade, or sell. Maybe it's just a hobby. Maybe it's a PSA. So I know, you know, there's Sunspace Presents, where we have variety show of acts and things. So maybe this would be more, you know, craft related things. And, you know, if there's some overlap, there's some overlap. But yeah, that's just sort of, I just wanted to put it out there into the cosmos that's just maybe something we could do in this strange, unprecedented time where, anyways, yeah, February 15th, everybody. Well, I said March 5th. February 15th is the next one, so yeah. Anyways, peace out, y'all. Have a good one. Arrivederci. 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 And a Happy New Year.
All right. Signing out. This is Go Team Brown. This is Go Team Yellow. This is Go Team Orange. Arpy Darpy. Oh, Squidward knows. Right. Okay. Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe if you can. This is very ominous music.
Hello?
Is anybody here?
Hello? Hi. I wanted to tell you a secret. Inside the locker, there's a big pile of ice. And the ice melts. It places the melting ice on a small slab of red clay.
Burn into the strangest colors.
And it could almost be like, home. Yeah, I'm gonna get some pizza now.
All right, bye.